Brightburn is a superhero horror movie that is produced by James Gunn. Yeah, it wasn't written or directed by him. He just produced this movie, but you know what? He has one of those names now, so you attach it so people will go see it. I was really looking forward to this movie. When I saw the trailer for it for the first time, I immediately thought to myself, this could be a really interesting movie because it has a great premise. Because it harkens back to what Batman was so afraid of in Batman v Superman in regards to Superman. What if one day Superman just got mad or got pissed off and decided, you know what, screw the human race, I'm going to lay waste to every single one of you. That's basically the premise of this movie. And when you think about it, if they were going to make something like that into a movie, it probably would be a little dark. It would be scary. It would be, a little more intense. And the trailers for this movie looked incredibly promising. So I was actually pretty stoked going into Brightburn. This movie revolves around Elizabeth Banks and David Denman. They are a married couple. They have been unable to have a child. But one night, a meteor crash lands outside of their barn. And, they go find it, and in it is a little baby, a human-looking baby, so they take him in, name him Brandon, raise them as their son. And what I did like seeing with Brandon is immediately you could tell something was off with him. I do feel that's usually the case in horror movies. Usually the kid who is maybe possessed or maybe is haunted usually seems a little bit strange. He's always got a very stoic expression on his face. He's not super responsive, not too enthusiastic about anything. And he's now 12 years old. His parents mostly assume it just has to do with puberty. But along the way, we begin discovering that there's probably more to this kid than we think. There was just one moment, his dad took him into the woods, they were hunting together, and he's kind of having the talk with them, like, oh, your body's changing, maybe you're starting to like girls a little bit more now. Which eventually leads to Brandon going to the girl's house that he likes, and he's kind of like creeping on her through her window a little bit. She's now terrified. But it's not just that. His parents notice he's acting a little bit more aggressively towards them, in the way he acts, the way he responds. At one point, they were in a diner celebrating his birthday, and, his uncle wanted to give him this shotgun, but his dad didn't want that to happen. He slammed his fist on the table, and the lights started flickering in the diner. Shit really hits the fan, though, when one day during gym class, after he fell, his crush goes to try to help him up. But as she's trying to help him up, Brandon is literally crushing her hand and just breaks her wrist. So yeah, that obviously has her mom freaked out. It's got him suspended from school, and now it's got the parents in a pretty tough predicament. Notably with Elizabeth Banks, because around this point, and it is throughout this movie, you start to see that the father, he's a little bit more, aware that something's wrong with him. He's noticing the violent acts. He's noticing the weird way their son is acting. He's like, something's wrong with him. Elizabeth Banks, she's a little bit more of a denial. But I do want to say, one of the best parts of this movie was Elizabeth Banks' performance. I really bought into her character. Because in a way, I feel she does represent how a lot of parents may feel about troubled kids. Like, you feel like in her mind, she knows the way Brandon is acting is wrong. It's not okay. There probably is something malicious about him. But she doesn't want to believe it, and she doesn't want to take too much action on it to make him feel different or to treat him differently. Because she's like, that's still my baby, that's still my son. Everyone always says parents will love their children regardless of anything, and you really see that here. She's not prepared to really take action. She's not prepared to believe that her son might be evil. Even when all the evidence is staring at her in the face, like him finding the spaceship that brought him to Earth, like her finding these really creepy, disturbing pictures that he draws under his bed. And it causes a bit of a strain between her and her husband because they're at conflicting points on how to deal with something like this. It's around this time, though, after Brandon had discovered the spaceship that brought him to Earth, it started to awaken the demons that are in him, the evil that's in him, and now he feels the need to really just take the world. And with that, Brandon now is basically going on a killing spree against the people who have been trying to hold him back. This brings us to the scene in the trailer where he goes to the diner to confront his crush's mother who suspended him. And, he just violently attacks her and he kills her. But I do also want to say, this was one of the flaws I had with this movie. The trailers showed too much. Like, you see that scene in the trailer when he goes to the diner and that woman is just hiding, trying to avoid him, literally afraid for her life, and then he attacks her. It was definitely a holy shit moment in the trailer, but you feel like it was all supposed to be a holy shit moment in the movie. That did kind of bum me out. It's in that moment, like, you feel like you should be a little more on the edge of your seat. You should feel, more intense because of what's going on. but you don't because you've seen the scene in the trailer already. I feel like that went with a lot of audience members because I don't think anyone who didn't see the trailer for Brightburn went to see Brightburn. The trailer was what got the audience into their seats, but you need to add a little bit more to keep the audience in their seats. I will say, eventually along the way, we do get to one really intense scene that was not in the trailer. At one point, Brandon has had to meet with his aunt, who's also the school counselor, and, you know, she's telling him, hey, I'm concerned about your behavior. I don't think you're making a lot of progress, so I'm going to have to make a report to the police at some point in regards to how you're doing. And in his mind, he's like, oh shit, I can't let that happen. So he eventually goes to his aunt and uncle's house, you know, in the middle of the night, just standing out there being really creepy, really inappropriate. So soon enough, his uncle's like, alright, you know what, I gotta take you home because this is ridiculous. And you know, as they're on the road driving, you know, his uncle's really giving him shit, like the way you're acting is insane. I'm gonna have a serious talk with your parents about it. You know, that kind of triggers whatever it is in Brandon's head to just do evil shit, which soon enough leads to his uncle getting into a horrible, horrible car accident that Brandon causes. At one point, you see Brandon just levitating over the car, and you know, his uncle's just stuck in there, literally with like a broken jaw hanging off of his face, bleeding to death. Brandon now kills him. His parents receive word of his death, and they also begin to realize that Brandon was nowhere around. And they even try to talk to Brandon about it. It's like, oh, your uncle died, and he's like, oh, okay. And then just goes about his business. It's like, his parents are just like, do you not care? And that right there is officially the breaking point for Dad. He's like, alright, something's wrong with our son. Something's like horribly, horribly wrong with our son that we can't fix. So I'm gonna have to do the fucked up shit. I'm gonna take him on a camping trip into the woods, you know, camping trip. And while on the camping trip, his dad, you know, tries to take the shotgun, just shoot him in the back of the head, but it doesn't work. He's impervious to bullets. Now Brandon just uses his laser vision and just burns through his dad's head, kills him. He's now going back home. He's gonna finish it off with his mom. And you know, Brandon shows up. He just starts destroying the house. His mom is just running away, afraid for her life. But she also now remembers, wait a minute, the spaceship that he arrived on earlier in the movie, he cut himself on that. That's something that can kill him. And you know, Elizabeth Banks, she takes a piece of glass from the spaceship. She knows what she has to do now. I will say, I did like this little moment right here between her and Brandon because, you know, they have that little talk. You know, she tells him, it's like, I still love you. You're still my son. You know, I know there's good in you. And you haven't seen it in him. He's like, I want to do good. And so, you know, she goes in to give him a hug, you know, telling him, you know, I'm always going to love you. And then she goes in to try to stab him, but he stops her. And now it's at this point, he takes her, he flies way up into the atmosphere with her, and, you know, holds her out, he's gonna drop her, but what I did kind of like seeing is, right before he dropped Elizabeth Banks, you know, she kind of just grazes the side of, you know, his face, because, you know, she's thinking in her head, it's like, it's still her boy. You know, he drops her, she dies, and then we see an airplane coming right at him. And then the very next scene, you see that the airplane was completely destroyed. Everyone who was on it died. You know, he's just, you know, being tended to by the police, by medical care. He's just kind of chilling there eating cookies while the news reports that all the people on the plane and both of his parents are dead. Which I gotta say, what kind of bummed me out was, again, the scene with the airplane and even the final shot at the end with him just hanging around eating cookies. That was in the trailer too. I really don't like when trailers do that. Like when they really give away like the final scene in the movie. It's like, don't give away that. We do kind of have like a mid-credit scene. It's kind of like that. You have the guy who played Yondu in Guardians of the Galaxy. You know, he's like this news anchor theorist who's like, oh, you have all these anti-superheroes that are in the world, they're gonna kill us all. Which does have me wonder, like, are they gonna make this like into a franchise? Like a bunch of these kids with superpowers that harken back to actual superheroes, but they're all evil? It would be a franchise I'd be a lot more hyped about if this movie was a little bit better. All in all, I will say, Brightburn, it was fine. Elizabeth Banks gave easily the best performance of this whole movie. I really bought into her character. I loved seeing her as a mom with this really troubled kid. I really felt she brought out what a lot of parents would be going through. I really appreciated that. The young kid who played Brandon, I don't know his name, but he was a very good kid actor. I really bought into him as this creepy, disturbed little fucker. Like I said, I love the premise of this movie. I do think it's really cool seeing a kid who's basically an evil little Superman. My issues are, one, I do feel this movie movie showed a little too much in the trailer. I would have liked this movie to have been more intense. I feel like it could have been if the trailers didn't give away so much. I guess I also would have liked to see a little bit more of the kid really going for world domination. I mean, for the most part, it's pretty small what he does. I mean, he kills some people, destroys his home, but I don't know, I guess I would have really liked to have seen, maybe just, massacre a city or something like that. Really do some evil shit. The kind that literally has this thing of, oh, the whole world is dead now. I mean, I kind of bought it with what the kid already did, but I would have liked to have really felt that. In the end, although this movie wasn't quite as good as I wanted it to be, it was enjoyable, it was interesting, and if they wanted to make more movies like this, I would get behind it, but I do hope they get a better feel on what they need to do with it. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.